Hello everybody, welcome to April's One for All.
Hello.
We will be starting shortly. We're just waiting for everybody to join from the meeting room, from the waiting room. If I could ask you to go on mute while we're getting everybody to join and while the presentations are taking place. You will have an opportunity to unmute and ask questions and also network in the breakout rooms later. So hello everybody and welcome to April's One for All. Thank you for joining us. We have got another exciting agenda for you today. So firstly, welcome from me. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Hayley Monks. I'm one of the founding members of the Women's Utility Network. I also run a training consultancy company called Think, Inspire, Create. Today's agenda is about routes into industry. And we've got a fantastic speaker lined up for you, but I'm going to leave the welcome there and hand over to Hayley Bruce, who is one of our advocates, to introduce our speaker and tell you a bit more about today's agenda.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining. So I'm Hayley Bruce. I'm the Leakage Hub Tactical Manager at Anglian Water and also an advocate for WUN. I've been working with Helen, Hayley and Claire over the last couple of months to pull this event together. It's my pleasure to introduce Claire Noble. Claire's the Head of Talent and Development at Cadent Gas. Claire's worked in various roles within the gas industry for around 16 years, including operational support, customer and HR roles in Cadent and its predecessors. For the last 5 years, Claire has actively led in a space of learning and development with expertise in apprenticeships and new talent. In her current role, Claire is responsible for developing and leading the future strategy for Cadent around talent, training and learning. Claire's passionate about various routes into talent and in particular champions apprenticeships for all and encouraging diversity within apprenticeships. Claire regularly represents Cadent to influence the skills agenda, how the industry can have a joined up approach and ensuring future skills opportunities can deliver what our industry needs. So I'm really looking forward to the talk. If you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat throughout and then we'll come to them at the end after the breakout session. So over to you, Claire.
Thank you very much, Hayley, and thank you for the opportunity of speaking. It was through a colleague that by having some conversations with WUN, so that there was an opportunity for us to talk about how to get people into our industry and what we can all do to support. So thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Hayley, as well. So just to move on to the first slide, I just wanted to start off by saying that we all work, and I expect the majority of us are in the. We are to go on to the next slide. Thank you. We work in a fantastic sector. There may be a few people on here that don't work in the sector actually, but the utilities industry is a fantastic sector. I have to admit, I actually fell into the utility sector by coming in through an HR route, but it's safe to say that I've enjoyed working in the industry and it's constantly changed over my in my 17th year. The sector is constantly changing and it will continue to do so, but we do have a skills challenge in our industry that has to be addressed. We are kind of at the cusp of a crisis and opportunity, and we need to be focused to the future and look at the opportunities that we've got Many of us have got ageing workforce, and that is where it is causing some of this crisis. We've got to bring people into the industry at various routes in order to support our future and to look at the great work that we need to be changing our industry with all of those opportunities that are coming up. So just before I go on, I'm going to ask you a question, and there should be a poll that will pop up in a moment. How many vacancies do you think need to be filled between 2020 and 2030 in our sector? And that includes kind of power, gas networks and utilisation, water, waste and supply chain. And that kind of includes new jobs, but also kind of their replacement and upskilling. So do you think it's 57,000, 134, 277 or 403? So I'll just give you a moment to answer that. And this data has come from the Energy and Utilities Workforce Strategy, which was released last year. And that is the second strategy, and it focuses on what we as an industry and utilities, energy and utility sector are going to do in the next 5 years. That's where that data has come from. Hopefully people have responded. So yeah, great. So actually nearly 50% of people have got that right, so well done. It is 277,000 jobs in the next 9 years now. And that is a staggering number of people that we need to get into our industry. And part of this is to share and showcase some of those routes and what we can be doing to support filling that skills gap. The recent 10-point plan from the government includes a number of areas for our area. Hydrogen growth, nuclear power, carbon capture, usage and storage. And that whole plan, with other areas that aren't so much in the utility industry, that whole plan is involving £12 billion of government investment, but it is creating 250,000 jobs up to 2050, and that includes reskilling people in our industry and our current workforce into new jobs too. So the question we're going to ask is, how do we get people into our sector, and what can we all be doing to be helping? So if we go on to the next slide. So slightly controversially, maybe, this is my personal opinion, that our education and learning options are confusing, they're tangled, and they're hard to understand. There are so many different routes. Talking about school children just for a moment, there are so many different routes for a school child to understand where to go. Do they go to college? Do they go direct into a job? Do they go into apprenticeships? There's now traineeships, there's Kickstart programme, there's BTECs, there's NVQs. There are so many different routes, and it is confusing, and it's confusing for children, and it's confusing for parents, and actually it's confusing for schools. And schools' advice, in my opinion, is limited, and is often still in the very traditional sense. The other angle on this is that employers, therefore, and the likes of people who are doing, sitting in an HR position and supporting some of these programs, is we as employers get spread too thin. I regularly meet with my account manager from the Education Skills Funding Agency, and he says also, we're talking about apprenticeships, then we'll talk about, are you supporting T-levels? Are you supporting work experience? Are you supporting by going into schools? Are you going to be doing traineeships? Are you going to be doing the Kickstart programme? And we're a large organisation of 6,000 people, and we can't do them all. And we've got, no wonder how kind of small, medium enterprises, SMEs, how they are able to support and how they are able to get their skills and get some school children into those options. So we can't do this alone in HR. So yeah, that was just one of the things I just wanted to share just before we kind of go into what the various routes are. So I just thought I'd pick up on a few of these, and I'm not going to go into detail on all of these today, but I just wanted to show some of those routes, and I have lumped some together as well. Part of this is we can't put all our eggs in one basket, but equally many employers can't stretch themselves to do all of these as well. But what are some of the routes? So first of all, we do have apprenticeships, and I am going to have a brief deep dive into my views on apprenticeships in a moment. We have opportunities to enter after A-level. We have many opportunities to enter after degree, graduate positions, and those that do degree and masters, and go on to that professional development in chartership. We've got other qualifications, like I mentioned before, people who may go and do a BTEC or MVQs, and they provide a good route into the industry too. We have traineeships, Kickstart programme on T-levels, and they are particularly programmes that have been that are kind of fledgling programmes really. And the Skills for Jobs paper that was released earlier this year and supports the Chancellor's report from last summer really looks at investing in people, investing in skills, and putting a huge amount of money and opportunity to make sure, especially post-COVID, how we can make sure that we can be moving people out of unemployment or out of a challenging situation coming out of school and bringing them into jobs. It's actually quite a good read for those that are in that kind of role. But the other thing I wanted to mention on number 5 is I've been in the industry for 16, 17 years, but I'm not technical. I haven't come in as an engineer. I've come in as an HR. My degree was in HR. And then I spent 10 years after working in HR when I was a student. When I came back, I've worked in various other parts of the organisation. I've worked in the operations team. I've worked in by the control room and supporting the control room. I've worked in other areas that are, I've not undertaken necessarily a technical role, but I've supported the technical elements that are going on in that role and have supported the development of and the delivery of the engineering outputs that we've needed to deliver. So we also need to think about, whilst the routes into industry are essential for engineering and technical roles, we also have to look at those routes into industry in all of those previous 4 of what we can be doing on the business and commercial side as well, because equally engineering and technical business, any business can't be run without those business and commercial roles. So that was just me wanting to just share with you what some of those routes are, and all of them have a place. I absolutely want to reiterate that all of them do have a place. In fact, we are going to have our second poll actually, just before we go to that slide, Hayley. Sorry, that's my fault. So just another quick question. This one is a multiple choice question. No matter whether what role you're in, it'd be great to hear what routes into industry do your company most engage with? So is that technical apprenticeships or non-technical apprenticeships, traineeships, Kickstart, graduates, any direct hires or any others? Or if you don't know, that's fine as well. Just be good to get a good view into what people are doing. Okay, just give that a moment. That feedback's gone. Okay, we got the results, Hayley. Fab. Okay, and obviously with it being multiple choice, great to see a good spread. No one's doing Kickstart. We aren't either at Cadent at the moment. Have considered it, but we aren't doing that at the moment either. So yeah, good spread of programs there, and that for me is part of the answer to this. Is we can't put all our eggs into one basket. So what I will do is I'm just going to dip a little bit into apprenticeships, because for me, apprenticeships are the one kind of program. Don't mind the next slide, please, Hayley. Thank you. They're the one that are most misunderstood, and we need to break some walls down. We need to knock walls down when it comes to apprenticeships. And everybody on this call, irrespective of what job you work in, where you work, how long you've worked in the industry, everybody can help to knock some of these walls down. I actually think that an apprenticeship probably would have been a great option for me at school, coming out of school. I did go the supposedly traditional route of going to college and going to university, but I don't think I really knew what I wanted to do with it. And it kind of just happened, and it was because the careers advice was poor. And obviously I recognise that was quite a number of years ago now. But actually an apprenticeship would have been a great option for me. So if we just click the next part of the slide, this is just going to show some of the past perceptions and past views of what apprenticeships are, and some that people still hold because they're misinformed and maybe don't understand, is first of all that they're for young people. Apprenticeships are not for young people. It is the perceived piece is that it is for people coming out of school, and they're for young people. The perception that it is, generally speaking, around kind of vocational, hands-on, physical type roles, that they are for the less bright people. The option of kind of coming out of school, you know, it was, you know, perceived as potentially not good enough. You know, you go to an apprenticeship if you weren't good enough to go to further or higher education. And also the fact that apprenticeships are for the start of your career and generally are for new jobs. And none of those things on that left of that slide, none of those are true. And we've been slowly breaking them as a country, we've been slowly breaking them, but we've got a long, long way to go. So just click for the next build up, please, Hayley. This looks to what is the future, what is now and what is the future. Apprenticeships are for any age. Anybody can undertake an apprenticeship. It doesn't matter whether you've worked somewhere else before. It doesn't matter whether you're 16, 26, 36, 46, 56, 66. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can undertake an apprenticeship. There is an incentive for 16 to 18-year-olds that the employer receives, but anybody can do an apprenticeship. Those apprenticeships are now up to degree. They start at kind of level 2. And they move all the way through, mapping against your qualification levels, your GCSEs, your kind of HND, HNCs, foundation degree, moving all the way up to level 7, which is your master's. They range in learning styles, and they provide a great opportunity for people to learn on job. They support career changes, and due to the above, you know, due to the fact that they are for anybody, and they are up to any level, and they are on a range of topics as well. That is supporting career change, and I am very much a supporter of apprenticeships for career change. I equally support apprenticeships for school children and want to support and enhance that school's careers advice, but I'm looking to support both sides of the coin. So absolutely, you know, a career change, it's about enhancing skills. Those apprenticeships are some great opportunities and great ways to go about that. And I think part of this comes to the perception, if you're doing an apprenticeship, if you think about some of the things on the left side, it often comes with the tag of it'll probably be a lower salary, and I couldn't possibly do an apprenticeship because apprentices are for young people and they'll come with a low salary. That isn't always the case. Certainly I talk about internally, when we've kick-started off some of our programs, is think about the end job that apprentice is going to qualify as. And I was having a conversation with our safety team recently. Think about what the end job is, and then work out how long that training program is going to be, and then pare the salary back a little bit. And that's your starting point. So start with the job, not start with the apprenticeship, and then work up. The other piece as well is the opportunity for upskilling employees. We have initiated that in Cadent, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But it is an opportunity for people that are already in a job, and it might support a career change internally. You know, somebody could be working in an engineering function, they fancy going to work in media, and actually as part of their progression, their career, they would like to go and work in kind of communications team, for example. And they might want to undertake a media type apprenticeship to help them move and to qualify in that area. That's quite a random example, but it's an example that could happen. So yeah, absolutely, it is about upskilling employees. It isn't just for new people coming into an organisation. So overall, if you don't mind just clicking once more, please, Hayley. The utilities industry can massively benefit from improved engagements around apprenticeships. And that is the crux for me. We've got a great, we've got loads of jobs that we need to fill. We've got massive skills gap in the skills that we need. And we've got some fantastic programs that exist and qualifications that exist in the apprenticeship space in all areas that can support utilities industry, that can be supported, and with different companies in our industry engaging in those options, we can really support our own industry and also support those people that actually want to do an apprenticeship too. So if we go on to the next slide, my summary really on just that mini deep dive into apprenticeships is that apprenticeships are for anyone. They're for everyone. And I'm just going to leave that for a second, because that is the crux for me, and I know I'm using that phrase a few times today. They are for anybody. Anyone can do them. There are different ways of delivering programs. We have talked to various training providers with some of our new programs, and we've worked out which delivery method is the best method for our learners and the best method for our company. And that's why we've chosen particular training providers. And generally, those training providers will also work with each learner and will help those learners to adapt and change their program to deliver for that learner, whilst delivering the end goal of apprenticeships. So just wanted to just leave that slide for a moment. So feel free to put any comments or questions in the chat as we're going. I don't know if we've had anything else. I'll just do a quick pause there before we go on to the next slide and see if there's anything that anyone would like to react or ask a question on. Well, the chat at the moment is just about hearing at the beginning, so hopefully everybody can hear. If not, we'll keep going, and there's time for questions and discussion later on. So I just wanted to share just one slide about Cadent and just bring some of this into life about what and how we are applying some of these different routes into industry. And I've deliberately left the left column is around what those entry points are. So we purposefully have programs at different entry points of the of our programs. We have entry points at GCSE, entry points at A-level, entry points at degree and mid-degree, entry points at from other programs, where if you've got other background and other influence, you can then bring come into our other programs. So we do have a range. We started with technical apprenticeships, and then over the last few years, we have also built up our non-technical apprenticeships and our apprenticeships that we don't deliver ourselves. The top ones, we have three main programs, and they are to be our field force engineers. It's been a program that's been running for a very long time successfully, and yes, we deliver that ourselves. The non-technical apprenticeships we've expanded over the last few years, and if you wouldn't mind just doing the extra build up. Some of the programs that we're working on now, we've got at least 60 people on scheme at this moment in time. In fact, I think I've actually missed out the customer people, some new customer people that started in the last couple of weeks. We've got project management apprenticeships, customer, we've got team leader, which is generally for our current employees, and so is some of the customer people. Senior leader, we've got one of our senior leaders going through that program as a development for him. We've got people going through accountancy and tax, and we've got some engineering design programs as well. So that's been a massive change for us that we've done in the last couple of years. But it's just expanding those different routes, those routes into industry. So just to start bringing into how can everyone in this call and how can we all be doing it? If we just go on to the next slide, please, Hayley. I just wanted to talk about what can we all do, and I'm conscious that this is the Women's Utility Network, and obviously there is an element. So far, I haven't touched on anything around programs for women. We actually do have a program for women, which is an internal development program. But what I wanted to talk about here was all the things that we can do to encourage apprenticeships, to encourage different routes into industry, and to encourage the diversity of those people joining any of those routes, and the diversity of people in our teams. So admittedly, some of these overlap a little bit. But first of all, it doesn't matter what role you're in. It doesn't matter whether you work in HR or not. We can all help with this challenging problem that we in the industry face. The first thing is just to keep talking. The more we talk, whether it's informally, whether it's down the pub and somebody talks about, oh, I'm not quite sure, what my child's going to do when they finish school, I'm not quite sure what the options are. Any informal or formal conversations, the more we are able to talk, the more we are able to tell people what the options are and tell people about the great industry that we work in, the more movement that we can create. Part of this is around inspiring people, inspiring through various channels. Work with your communications team on inspiring people about what opportunities there are there. And also for us, we have a big program around our education and skills, and that is about inspiring people at school and going into schools and telling them our stories, telling them how we got in, and kind of demystifying some of that confusion of that ball of wool that I put in at the beginning. So a big piece on that is inspiring. We've got a continued gender and ethnic minority disparity in our workforce, in the industry. The sector recognises that we need to tap into that the largest talent pool possible that's there, and one that can better reflect the kind of population by people that we serve. So we also need to look at what can we do to encourage that diversity. How do we encourage girls to do STEM subjects? And this is where it kind of blends into the bottom right picture. What can we be doing to encourage girls into STEM, to encourage girls into our industry? The next one is around that creative women and showcasing. And I'm going to do what I'm preaching. And in a moment, we're going to showcase one of our apprentices who joined us last year. And Lauren and I are going to have a couple of moments, a couple of questions. We're just going to have a quick chat about what her journey has been. And these are great opportunities to showcase and tell people. It links it all together. Showcase what opportunities you've got. Showcase fantastic stories. And usually stories are what lands with people. Stories in schools are what helps, rather than telling people what they need to do. Do it yourself. Do an apprenticeship yourself. Look at what skills you might want to improve on, what programs you could do, where you want to develop, where does your career look like it might be taking you in the industry, or in any different part of your organisation. Start yourself, do it yourself, do some of those programs, and you've got the great opportunity of then utilising your own story and your own showcase to help inspire people. I put the next one on was just around, we have got a great opportunity to showcase our industry as a great industry to be in. Like I mentioned earlier, there's the green, the 10-point plan. And we've got such a huge amount of green opportunities that we can be selling to young people, to people that want a career change, about the opportunities that lie in our industry. Some of those children at school can be our engineers of the future. They might be people who are, putting the hydrogen networks in that we're doing trials on at the moment. There are some fantastic opportunities that are coming out of our industry. And we need to use those stories and that journey of where we're heading to be able to inspire those young people. And it's got to start early to inspire and help people to make those decisions early, to be able to create the bigger talent pool for us to be able to fish in, to get more people into our industry from a diverse background. And the last two I've kind of touched on already is just change the world by telling your story, yours or other people's stories actually. Tell people what you've done, how you've come about, and like I say, around the kind of women and girls in STEM, what can we be doing to help inspire girls? We at Cadent work with a couple of girls only schools deliberately as part of our strategy, and we have women going into that school to go and talk to them about what their journey is, how they've started, and what they can do. So it is about trying to find different ways and different angles to be able to encourage anyone into our industry, but also to encourage the huge amount of diversity that we all want, actually. And I'm sure there's nobody that doesn't sit there saying that we don't want a diverse talent pool in our industry. So with that in mind, I can see Lauren's on the call, so hopefully if Lauren can, don't mind Lauren, pop yourself on camera, as she is. And Lauren and I are just going to have just a couple of minutes just to showcase. We don't mind going on to the next slide, please, Hayley. So Lauren joined Cadent last year. So we've met just once face to face, as has probably been the case for many people that joined last year. And Lauren joined our program called the Commercial Training Program. And in that program, they undertake project management apprenticeship. I'm just actually going to pause on that just before I go to Lauren and say that was a really important thing for us around marketing that program. We didn't market the program as an apprenticeship. We marketed the program of how we wanted to market it. We wanted to market as, actually, the gap is we've got some commercial skills we need to be building. We have an engineering training program. We created a commercial training program. And then we said, and as part of that program, you're going to do an apprenticeship. And by that, we've probably meant potentially, and maybe Lauren might be able to answer this, potentially maybe inspire different people to answer because of how we marketed that position. So hi, Lauren, thanks for joining.
Good afternoon.
Right. So Lauren, tell me a bit about your career history to date.
So very similar to you, when I finished school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My mum worked in a primary school as a teacher, so that sort of felt like a bit of a natural route. So I ended up in primary schools working in reception with the little ones for about 7 years. During that time, I did my foundation degree and degree alongside it, so it was all interrelated. So I guess maybe that sort of inclined me for the apprenticeship, but I really enjoyed the combination of working and studying at the same time. I got to me having my own class and I thought, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. So I had a look at what else was out there and I joined a law firm as a paralegal, which was a big jump, but really good fun, but not a lot of training was provided. So I felt completely out of my depth. Really enjoyed working in corporate and being in an office and like just, I guess, having my opinions and thoughts heard and a bit more freedom. But the law firm wasn't for me. So I got a job back in a school for 6 months whilst I looked for what the next step was going to be. And I started looking for new roles. And actually, when I got offered this role, I got offered a teacher training job at the exact same time. So it was the choice of, do I go with what I know and stick in the comfort zone, or I guess take the step out there into the unknown.
Wow. So yeah, massive career change. So what made you choose an apprenticeship?
So like I said, I didn't have any experience in like the corporate, well, really. I knew the classroom, so I sort of looked at the options, sort of entry role positions. I'd seen apprenticeships out there, but as you suggested earlier, the preconceptions, they're for kids, people just finishing school. It's going to be really, really low salary. It's going to be really hard to get by, and all of this. I actually looked into it, and so mine is a level 4, which I think is about foundation degree equivalent. So it's not an entry, it's not just for children, anyone could do it, any age. My cohort was aged between 18 and 30, so we got pretty big mix in there. And like someone was mentioning in the chat about gender mix, we're a 50-50 split. We've got 4 boys, 4 girls in our group, and everyone's come from completely different backgrounds, so there's no sort of definitive this is the path.
No, sounds great. And also, obviously, you were saying about choosing an apprenticeship. Why did you choose the utilities industry? What was that kind of grabbed you to come into the utilities industry?
Well, I would imagine, like most people in the utilities industry, it wasn't what I thought I would be going to. But I thought about project management. I thought that would be something that I would sort of understand, be able to do a little bit. I was used to controlling 30 children, planning and like marking, you know, there was so many aspects that had to all be considered. So I thought project management would be a good route to go into. So I was looking at what was available in the area, found Cadent, did some research, and I loved the company. I loved what they stood for. A lot of the innovation work, the future of gas, the looking to be 100% hydrogen transporting network, things like that. It was to know the impact it was going to have on the planet and our role in it. It was exciting. I know I wanted to be a part of it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lauren. Is there anything else you'd like to add about your story and about how you
I would just like to mention that I said that it was part of the hydrogen and the excitement of that kind of thing. And even though my role as a commercial trainee had absolutely nothing to do with that, opportunities are available for us at all times if you want to get involved. I've managed to be involved in a hydrogen project, which was really exciting. So it's not just been like quite limiting. I haven't just had, this is your role, this is what you're doing. It's see what's out there and enjoy yourself. It's been really great.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lauren. And yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. You know, the diversity of people's roles and how they can have an impact in your organisation and the company is huge. Yes, I work in HR, but I am looking at supporting how do we get and build those hydrogen skills for the future. So yeah, there's such a wide range, and I think, you know, Cadent, we are good at giving those opportunities to people, and on particularly on those programs at the early stage. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lauren.
Of course.
So just moving on to my last slide, and then we're going to go into breakouts and just have some conversation. This is just something. Now, admittedly, a little bit of this will be an area where I'm influencing because of the role that I am in. But I just wanted to give an idea of some of the things that I am involved in and where I feel that I can have an impact. We can all play our part, and we've got to work together as an industry to sell the opportunities that we have. So just, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I've got an opportunity of working with my colleague who might be on the call actually, around supporting our diversity and inclusion strategy. Absolutely, diversity and inclusion strategy is fundamental and strongly linked to, as we've been talking already, strongly linked to our talent strategy, but links into our apprenticeships. And I saw there's a little bit of a chat around the kind of women's work in there as well. And you know, some of the things that our diversity and inclusion strategy and working with our recruitment team and looking at trying to get diverse apprentices in, some of the things we've done is things like we've changed the language in our job descriptions. We've taken the male language out, you know, trying to use softer words, softer language that women are more likely able to hook into and go, do you know what, I could do that job. Different recruitment events, you know, there are more events, STEM women events that are coming up, and we are broadening our diverse approach to recruitment strategies to try and encourage people to come into those routes. So absolutely kind of influencing and supporting that diversity strategy. Apologies for the acronym on here, but I couldn't fit it in without it all looking wrong. There's APPGs, which are all-party parliamentary groups run with a number of MPs and lords, and I was on one yesterday actually about the apprenticeship levy. There are opportunities to talk in that. I actually talked, and one of my comments, in fact I did speak yesterday, was about, you know, what incentives can we get for women to do an apprenticeship in STEM? We have a 16, you know, we have an incentive if we take an apprentice on at 16 to 18. Why can't we have an incentive for a woman to join a STEM programme and to help fill some of those gaps? There's also industry parliamentary events as well, and some of those events is just constantly chipping away. It goes back to that piece I was talking about. Keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. Local employment meetings. I'm in a local the local council, borough council group, and sitting around the table is local employers, schools, Department of Work and Pensions, the job centre, the council, and we talk about what opportunities are coming up, what are each of us as employers doing, and how can the council help us. You know, I can't go to every council meeting across where our Cadent footprint, but it's all little things that we can be doing. I'm a member of the Apprentice and Technical Education Group, and that links into energy and utility skills workforce strategy. I also attend and regularly talk at just again having those conversations at education skills funding agency events, responding to consultations. There are buckets of consultations that are out there, and you know, if you have got the time, you're in that kind of role, spend the time and just put some of those comments, thoughts, ideas. Nothing will ever get taken if we just keep the ideas in our heads and don't talk to anybody. I've mentioned our education skills strategy creation and some of the work we've done there, and I think, you know, I've had some big influence in what that has looked like and what we can try and do to influence people coming into our industry. And just to link back to the slide on what we can all be doing is just those informal conversations. So that was just me trying to wrap up kind of for me what I'm able to do. So we this last slide was basically just to kind of close it off really, and to take us and move us into the breakout session. So just thinking about all the things that we've talked about so far, or I've talked about so far with Lauren, what opportunities we've got, how we can work together, what we can be doing. So I think Hayley will put us into some breakout rooms, and then we'll come back for a few minutes to just potentially do any Q&A. We all back, Hayley?
Yep, all back now.
So I think, is this our last slide, Hayley? Do you want me to lead this or?
If there's any questions or anything anybody else wanted to raise before we sort of go to wrap up today's event.
Claire, I did have one question. I mean, you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation about that there is an incentive sort of out there for employers for sort of 16 to 18-year-olds. I mean, what do you think the opportunity would be to sort of expand that? I mean, especially sort of post-COVID, employment is on the rise. Do you think sort of broadening that incentive would sort of help encourage companies to offer more?
I think it could do. I mean, admittedly, the incentive is the normal incentive is £1,000 extra for a 16 to 18-year-old. That has been since COVID. Any apprentice that was taken on any apprentice that was taken on had an additional incentive of £1,500 or £2,000 depending on the age. That's since been scrapped by age, and there's now an extension till the end of September, and this is all in a post-COVID world. There is an incentive for taking apprentices on for full stop. That idea that, I'm not saying it's my idea, but I'm sure hundreds of other people have thought it. That thought around that kind of, why couldn't we have a STEM, women joining a STEM programme? I referenced it on the group yesterday with MPs, and there was one person that said, well, we need to be using the levy for what it's used for rather than thinking of other ways up to use the money. But I do think it's an opportunity. Whether it's going to go, whether it's going to fly, I don't know. My personal opinion on having an incentive for 16 to 18-year-olds is it goes against the whole point that apprenticeships aren't for young people. Again, at the Education Skills Funding Agency, I remember a couple of years ago we had a discussion on our table. We raised it in the Q&A session and said, we're all talking here about how to encourage women into technical programs or older people into, not school children into apprenticeships. And yet every single poster that you've got in this room has got a young person on. And the Education Skills Funding Agency was like, oh, that's a good point. So I think I don't know how far the incentives could go. It's just an idea that I think if we continue to push, you just don't know where these things can come from. I'd like to think that somebody might listen at some stage and say it's a good idea, and let's create it.
Definitely, I think it comes back to as an industry, how we can sort of collaborate better to sort of encourage more change.
Yeah. We're having a conversation with Energy Utility Skills as part of the workforce strategy, and we've got a group of us working on one part of the programme, and that is to talk about, we are looking at apprenticeship levy flexibility, and the whole work stream is around skills and competencies for the future, and how we build that in.
I think there's really something we can do as part of the Women's Utility Network as well. We have about 2,500 members now, so people passionate about the cause. And there's been lots of interesting things in the chat. Angie mentioned about WUN mentoring at schools. I myself currently mentor it at sixth form girls school. And I think if everyone in our network could take this message out to schools, to families, and get the young people who are they are the energy and utilities career of the future, and help to share the message. If we all did just that little bit, we would make a huge difference.
I think that'd be a fantastic idea. And I mentioned that we've got some connections with girls only schools. We've got a connection with a mentor program for Social Mobility Foundation. Absolutely, I think if we created a women's utility mentoring program, and we worked with schools and children in schools and did webinars, then I think that'd be a fantastic idea. It'd be a great movement to create.
Yeah, well, we'll pick that up at our next founders meeting.
Add it to the agenda, Hayley.
Add it to the agenda. Because there are different protocols around things like that in terms.
Absolutely, yeah.
Claire, it's Tony Maloney.
I did spot you, old boss, for anyone that
Yeah, well, we still connect with through ATEG and stuff like that. So I guess my thing's coming from having worked in Cadent and British Gas and organisations back in National Grid and that. And the one thing I learned is trying to translate for me as someone is keen on really bringing more females into engineering and utilities and STEM is now applying that into a smaller an SME. I work for quality heating services now, and we've got 200 people, and so it's quite a different dynamic. So I suppose the questions leading, if you take the context of one of the major things that I've seen is that there's lots of competing qualifications for baccalaureates, T levels, and engineering, various things that go on. There's a complex skills landscape, and a government that's intent on continually tinkering, that then creates this kind of confusion about if you're an individual, albeit a young boy or a young girl, thinking early ahead of these things. It gets confused about, what do I pick? What's right for me? Where do I go? And then you've got employers thinking, well, okay, what do we get behind today? Because it's moving. It's really, really tricky all the time. But for SMEs, I think the problem is we want to kind of dovetail in and try and support, particularly our larger customers and clients such as yourselves and the organisation work with, but for ourselves, to try and work out where do we do work that's complementary to the organisations of your size that are doing huge things, so that certain areas don't get overwhelmed and others get left behind or underwhelmed with employer support. So I guess the thing is kind of how do we get to that coordination where we all can play a part, albeit very small or very big, with with large organisations such as yourself?
I think we had a brief conversation in our little group actually, and said that there is no golden nugget for this. It has all got to be the constant, all of us constantly doing that movement and constantly doing things. I do think there are opportunities, things like the transfers for levy. That's something we haven't done yet, but we have been talking about. That's a great opportunity, a way of connecting with smaller organisations and connecting that opportunity of working with small organisations and also helping them to bring apprenticeships on. So yeah, I think that's just a couple of small ones, Tony, but I'm conscious it's just gone 2 o'clock, so I think we're trying to wrap it up. But yeah, they would be my couple of comments.
That's been an excellent conference, I have to say. I've really enjoyed it, so it's been useful coming and getting another perspective on this.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Lauren. It's been absolutely great to have you here and for you to share your expertise. In terms of quickly what's coming up, so the next One for All is on the 10th of. We have an I Am Remarkable workshop on the 10th of May. So go to our WYSI new website or check us out on social media if you want to get involved in that. The next One for All is the 19th of May, and it's a career in the nuclear industry, so with Annette Morris. And then June, we've got Future of the Workplace and Utilities. So we've got the Chief People Officer, Geraldine Buckland from Alexon, and Angela Booth from Thames Water, talking about what their businesses are doing to adapt and evolve to new ways of working going forward, with lots more other stuff coming out on social media. Check out our new website. We're incredibly excited about our new website, easy to use, new functionality. You'll find all of our events on there. More than anything, if you are only joined the network by following us on LinkedIn, please now join via our website. You can see on the slide there into the corner, join our network. You'll be able to sign up to make sure that you get signposted emails for any of the events. And it also helps us to actually share information about our members, not your personal information, but how many people are coming to events, etc., with our amazing partners who are the ones that help us to do a lot of the great stuff that we do as well. And on a final note, obviously we launched podcasts in January. Our April podcast is coming soon. Watch out for it. But if you search One for All on the usual Apple and other podcast channels, you will find us as well. So thank you very much all for coming, and look forward to seeing you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.